There's a sim floating in the air.
We get Super Sim. I don't understand these things.
What is happening?
Back on again, now that we're somewhat sane. The dude flying in the air is not, but yeah. So welcome back to part 2 of episode 25 of PrinnyCast, as we're talking about SimCity, Sims, and Fun Sim, and we'll get into all sorts of stuff here. And hello, big man music. And so let's start this off with some history lessons, just a quick one. Where did all this truly come from? From the unlikely source by a computer and robotics engineer major whose interests were all across the board, and one day, the young Will Wright decided he was playing games so much he might as well be making his own. So in 1984, he released his homebrew hit of Raid on Bungling Bay for the Commodore 64, and some Nintendo fans may remember the top-down go-anywhere helicopter action title was also ported onto the Nintendo a few years later. But you see, something strange happened during its design. Will was having more fun making the cities and landscapes than he was playing the game itself. So, game editor kept evolving. So by 1986, Will met a dude named Jeff Braun, who was a Amiga font engineer, and someone who wanted to jump into the game industry as well, and they formed Maxis. And then by 1989, that little editor had grown and launched into a game that would change everything, SimCity. And he suddenly was a gaming celebrity, and his ideas from SimCity started spinning off into other ideas, including SimEarth and SimAnt in the early 90s before SimCity 2000 in 1993. We'll talk about all of this other stuff. But first, Maxis went public on the stock market in 1995, and it had a strong start. The stock quickly began to drop as the titles of the area just didn't catch on anymore because they were quite literally scraping, kind of like the Tycoon series have. They're getting absolutely everything they can, and they weren't selling anymore. So by 1997, EA, Electronic Arts, bought out Maxis because of their troubles, and only now did one of Wright's bizarre golden ideas of an interactive dollhouse get funded as EA saw promise in the franchise that Maxis had developed. But first, SimCity 3000 released in 1999 to recultivate the brand, and so a year later the industry changed all over again as the first Sims launched and became one of the most successful video games of all time, bumping Myst off the honor of being the best-selling PC game in history, as Sims sold 11.3 million copies of the game in its first 2 years alone. The openness of the project even saw support through numerous expansion packs that gave new outfits, new game mechanics, new housing options, even the concepts of an interactive city to visit and vacation areas to the Sims universe. Of course, there's a lot of people that would claim that all this expansionism is partly what killed the PC market as well and gave birth to the DLC woes that we have today. So, in the middle of all of this latter portion, Wright was given a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Game Developers' Choice Awards in 2001. In 2002, he became the 5th person to be inducted into the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame. And in 2007, the British Academy of Film and Television Arts awarded him with a Fellowship Award, the first given to a video game designer. He also built robots for BattleBots and the Robot Wars with his daughter Cassidy, specifically the champion Kitty Puff Puff, whose technique of wrapping other robots to incapacitate them was soon banned because of its effectiveness. He's been one of the most important people in gaming, technology, and entertainment by publications such as Entertainment Weekly, Time Magazine, PC Gamer, Discover, GameSpy, and so many others. Meanwhile, he was involved in the game design less and less in the 2000s era, likely culminating in the release of multi-genre monstrosity that was Spore in 2008, which is a whole episode in itself, really. It's a very lengthy and often delayed production period, heavy hype, and even heavier dismissal upon its actual release, despite the rave reviews from critics. And no small part all of this mess was thanks to its DRM anti-piracy software that was notorious for not only breaking the game, but also opening computers up to hijackers and malware itself. And a year later, Will Wright left EA and Maxis, where he went back to his robot making. Nevertheless, his game design involvement has been minimal ever since, having next to nothing to do with SimCity 4, The Sims 3, the Spore spin-offs Dark Spore, nor the most recent SimCity 5 or SimCity Reboot or whatever else you want to call it. Though in the late 2011, Will Wright became a member of the board of directors for Linden Labs, the folks behind Second Life. But Maxis is still alive and well, despite EA continuing to prove its unfortunate habits with DRM over the oversaturation of expansions for the Sims series itself and server instabilities. And with all that being said, let's dig into our first personal experiences and thoughts about all of this stuff. So what was your guys' first Sim game?
My first was SimCity 2. SimCity 2 on the Super Nintendo and playing it on the PS. I think I played that game so much at school that they banned it because we were just playing it so much.
Yeah.
We were like not getting work done because we'd go to the computer lab instead of doing work, we would play SimCity.
The risk of putting video games in your schools, even if they were educational like this one.
I didn't get into The Sims until Sims 2. I actually never really played Sims 1 that much. I think it was actually you, Chris, that you showed me Sims 2, and I got into it.
Possibly.
Yeah. I have put thousands of hours in Sims 2. I played that game to death. I built houses, which is funny because I look at the SimCity game that's out, and a lot of the small houses are directly from Sims 2 and Sims 3.
I think it's kind of a fan nod. So what about you, Mike?
Well, mine was also the first SimCity game, but I don't really have too many memories of it. I just remember how blocky it all was, and my favorite, though, would be Sim Ant. It's the one that I have the most memory of. So I used to go over to my buddy Luke's, and we would play it. I actually, recently, about 3 years ago, I think, I found somebody selling it on Amazon or eBay or something, and I got it. So I have my own copy.
It wasn't like, oh, that was a nostalgia trip, I'll play this for a couple hours, and that kind of didn't. It seemed like you played it all week long.
Yeah, I pretty much did. I mean, I haven't played it too much since then, but it's something that I will go back to at some point.
The controls are kind of sluggish. It was a mouse game that was ported to a controller, and that rarely works out very well, but at the same time, they changed and enhanced so much from the PC version. I've played the PC version since then. I didn't care for it all that much, but the Super Nintendo one,
I prefer the Super Nintendo version.
I played the PC version, actually.
maybe that's why you don't have fond memories of it.
Yeah, the Super Nintendo one's a lot better, I think.
And my first one was also SimCity. I mean, it was the original. Now, I didn't play the PC version. I've never played the PC version of the original. But SimCity for the Super Nintendo, it saw a lot of rentals. Ironically enough, I think it's only, once again, like Mike there, I think it's only been in the last 3 years that I've actually had a copy of it. It's a classic game, even though it hasn't really aged well. It feels more like a puzzle game than it does a city builder at this point. And I'll go ahead and say Sims 2000 was probably my next big one. I did play Sim Ant a lot. It got rented almost, probably about half as much as SimCity did. I still don't know why I didn't buy either one of them back in the day. But SimCity 2000 was the first PC game the family got for the computer. And the problem was it barely ran because it was a computer that could barely run it. It was kind of a reward to play that particular game. And to this day, I anytime a SimCity comes out, I still mourn the loss of that incredibly cheap trick of using the waterfall hydroelectrics. Because all you did was go into the mode at the first of the game where you designed the terrain, make yourself one gigantic waterfall, stick it off somewhere, and just fill it up with the hydroelectric, and you never really seem to run out of money that way, because you're not spending on it on replacing your failing power sources every few years, because they're infinite. Once they're there, they're always there, and as long as there's enough of them there, they run the entire town.
Infinite power!
Ah, I miss that. And I remember the one on the Super Nintendo running extremely slow. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, the SimCity 2000 on Nintendo ran horribly slow.
I mean, I remember the one on the PlayStation 1, and even it was a mess.
It was quite bad. The PC one was funny. You can get it to run so fast that it would be in the billions of years and then crash.
I don't think I left one going that long. I usually ran out of things to do and started over again. Especially by the time you fill it up with arcologies.
Yeah, that's everybody just eventually filled it up with arcologies, and then once your population reach maximum.
So how about Sim Earth?
Didn't really play that one.
I rented it a few times, but it had a game mechanics that I didn't quite understand, I think. It had nothing to really grab me the same way, and thusly I failed pretty miserably at it.
I never even played it, unfortunately.
In Sim Farm, I remember playing it at some point.
I don't think I played Sim Farm.
Sim Tower 1994. As far as I know, that is the oldest version of the tower games, and there's been a lot of copycats from it. Zoot Tower, the guy who actually designed the original Sim Tower, that was his recreation under his own name, so I think there was probably some licensing issues, but you'll see Flash games based on this idea and all sorts of stuff. Sim Park, 1996, which was basically a knockoff of Theme Park from Bullfrog, but the Sims, of course, had to try their own version of it. And, of course, now we're up to stuff we can actually talk about. The Sims in 2000. I pretty much bought it not too far from launch. I'm not sure what exactly grabbed me about it, because most people were in the line of thinking of, why would you want to play a game about life, where you clean the dishes, and you cook the dinners, and you go to work, and you go to the bathroom? What is the fun of that? I think people picked it up really, really quickly because it sold like hotcakes not long after it started, and there was quite a bit of hype behind it at the time too. And just about everybody I knew, even if they'd never played a Sims game before, was getting involved in it. And young, old, male, female, it was kind of like the Minecraft of the early 2000s, I guess. It was a genre breaker. There was some people that just to build houses.
I never got into it. I never played the first one. I think I played the first one once.
The Sid Meier's Sim Golf ones. And there's a reason that Sid Meier's name's on it, because in 1996 there was a Sim Golf. And that one was probably one of the most bland of the Sims games I've ever seen. There was not any kind of personality. It was just a bunch of bland graphics and a bland simulator all around. But when Sim Golf came along, it took a lot of the ideas off of Sims. So the Simlish was there. You had the kooky graphics. You had the humor. All of that stuff was in that version. And it was pretty successful. I had a demo of it that I played quite a bit for a demo.
I remember a lot of people getting severely addicted to that demo.
Because you could actually, I mean, you wouldn't go down like person view, but it would be like this little mini game of being able to play the actual golf. And there was something kind of satisfying about that.
I just remember people telling me, I don't know what I'm going to do when this game comes out. I just played I'm playing one hole, and I'm playing for hours. One hole.
And I did skip one. 1999's SimCity 3000.
Oh, that's a bad one, Skip. SimCity 3000 was the first game when I bought a computer when I was 18. Yeah, I'm old now.
Oh no.
SimCity 3000 was one of the first games I bought, and thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours were put into that game. I cannot count how many cities I built. I remember I got so good that I could getting the land value of even the industry up into medium. I have 98% of my city astronomical land value. It was just absurd. I cannot explain how much I played that game. It still arguably has the favorite characters for me. I wish I could mod the character, you know, their faces and everything, mod them from that game and put them in SimCity, the new one, as the advisors and everything.
I can see that.
I wouldn't even go as far to say, and this is absurd because I'm going to say it, if they added the DLC that replaced the advisors with the SimCity 3000 ones, I would buy it in a split second.
Yeah, the ones
that's how much I like those advisors.
The SimCity reboot are pretty much just characters from Sims, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Mike hasn't really played any of these except for SimAnt.
I did play the original Sims, but not for very long, maybe an hour or two.
Didn't really grab you?
No. It was just, closest thing to a Sim game that I played the crap out of was the non-side-scrolling sections of ActRaiser. That's about it.
Oh, ActRaiser, ActRaiser was awesome.
I tried to play SimCity 4, but it doesn't run very well.
The SimCity 4 in 2003.
That game, from the very beginning, was very broken, but very enjoyable at the same time. Mm-hmm. It was far more of a challenge than SimCity 3000 ever was. I mean, that's kind of mean. SimCity 3000 was kind of challenging at times if you didn't know what you were doing, but SimCity 4, you could be making money and then your city is screwed in like a matter of seconds. In SimCity 3000, you could almost always recover from anything that you did.
I need to play those back-to-back one of these days and just see how much of a difference there was, because there was a good 4 years of development between the two. But
well, SimCity 3000, even with cheetah mode on, there was like a 2-minute delay between getting payments, and that way you got to sit there for 2 minutes to think about what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
Especially if you were flat broke, unless you took out some bonds or something, which I always did. Took out tons and tons of bonds and then pay them off.
I remember, probably this is the major reason why SimCity 4 is more difficult, I remember being able to leave SimCity 3000 just running. You could leave it running overnight. You wouldn't have to worry about your city burning down or anything as long as you had everything set up properly. SimCity 4, I do not think you could ever do that.
Yeah, SimCity 4, up your taxes all the way, walk away, come back 10 minutes later, find your city is completely abandoned, you've been fired.
Well, not only that, you'd have the disasters absolutely run rampant.
I don't think you could have disasters in that game. I think they were all completely manual, which is weird to me.
I don't know. I had a lot of fires last time I played it. That was one of the reasons why I failed, is that I had too much money in the fire department trying to...
Yeah, fires are very common in that game. If you don't have fire protection area, it will catch fire. Guaranteed. 100% chance. All the other disasters were just, you could do them manually to do terraforming and stuff, like put the volcano to make a mountain and then put something around it. I did that all the time. SimCity 3000, their disasters were quite terrifying and devastating. The tornado actually wasn't that bad, but the earthquake could cripple your city.
Mm-hmm. I think the UFO is probably the worst monster disaster they ever had, too.
Yeah, Monster Truck Dinosaur was in 4.
And speaking of the expansion for SimCity 4, that was Rush Hour. What did you think about the little add-on driving game that they threw in there?
I hated it immensely. If you did it, you'd crash and your rating would go down. If you didn't do it, these stupid icons icons would be all over your screen, and you'd click, and it would drag you into the game even though you didn't want to play. So they modded it later, so it would ask if you wanted to play.
I thought that was in there anyway.
No, it wasn't in there at first. It was modded very, very quickly because people were so angry about it. But the roads and everything it added, I forgave them for that. Because one-way streets, for the word, forever.
And then a year later came out Sims 2, and I think I played this one more than the first one because they added so much more to it, and I knew so many more people who actually played the game by then. Pretty much everybody I was hanging out with played Sims 2, except for apparently Mike.
Actually, I remembered Erica was playing it, and she showed me something, and I pirated it. And the next day, I bought it, and that's how much I was just like instant enjoyment. And I poured thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours into that game.
Oh, she did too. I'm surprised that on her stream. I'm surprised she doesn't play some of the Sims games on there more often.
I played that game so much because it was a blast. And then the expansions came, the college expansions, the universities. Oh man, I remember playing that for like 24 hours straight one time just because I was so fascinated by it. And then seasons just made it even crazier.
That's the weird thing. I had like 2 or 3 of the expansions for Sims 1, but Sims 2, I only had the basic game.
I know, I gave it to you.
Oh, that's right, you did. I was thinking that was Sims 3, so I don't have Sims 3. Okay.
Nope.
Doesn't Sims 3 have like 10 expansions already?
Yeah.
Oh, it has more than that. They launched like 5 in the last 6 months.
God, that's too much.
It has expansions.
There was 3 this year.
That's what they did with the Sims 2, though. They did the exact same thing.
Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, none of them are mandatory. Well, some of them are. Some of them you have to have certain other ones, but...
I paid probably $400 on Sims 2 stuff. And the thousands of hours I put into it, I actually think that I got my money's worth still. It was
Probably
very...
so.
I mean, you saw for a while, I was just sitting there torturing my Sims. For a while, I was trying to... I filled the whole town, seeing that if I could fill the entire town with tombstones. I think I got halfway through it where I got bored and stopped.
I remember my second Sims 2 build, and the first one was pretty much just me playing one household and using the default for the rest. But the second one, I was recreating households for pretty much everybody I knew at the time. And there's this mutual friend that we have, Jeff from Canada, and so I built his house. And this moment has stuck in my head as one of those ultimate gaming moments. No sooner does he plop at the front door, ready to move in, he heads straight to the bathroom, steps into the shower, he does not disrobe, no, he grabs an oar and starts playing pirate. And that is so Jeff. It was so perfect, I cracked up laughing.
Epic.
I actually have a recording of that too, but it's so old. I mean, that was like 2004, so I've run several computers. I've probably lost it, but yes.
I want to see that. That's great.
That
is the best thing ever. I quit playing the game at one point, and I was just messing around with the houses and the buildings, and I was just building houses a lot and fixing houses.
It'd be a great tutorial for young builders. I mean, it doesn't really teach you, supporting walls and stuff like that, but as far as house flow, it's fantastic for that.
Oh yeah, for me, I had to have a spawn room, and the spawn room was where you put the baby. Baby had to be a spawn room because that little bastard has to be quarantined. It can't be, and if dear God, if you have twins. If I've had that before where I built a house and I started playing and they had them have a kid and I had twins and I'm like, son of a bitch! And because I've got them in the wrong house, I'm just like, so eventually I started putting 2 spawn rooms just for that. And the spawn room is just basically, it doesn't have any lights or anything, it's just a dark room and it's got the crib in it and the diaper thing and they get put in there and later on using Picasso with More Awesome Than You, that mod, oh god, that mod is legendary. Basically, if the baby needed anything, your adult characters would be snatched More Awesome Than You and sent to take care of the baby or the child because you learn very quickly in that game that the social worker came for very little to no reason for any of the kids and stuff. If their stuff ever goes in red for more than like a couple sim seconds, they come and take your kid. I did marvel at the hilarity that the baby and the toddler in that game are invincible. They cannot be killed. There is no possible way. I have set them on fire. I have set the entire house on fire.
And now you know why. It's for people like you. They're trying to stop you.
Yeah, for people that they're trying to stop me from being sadistic. And I find it very weird that I threw one of the toddlers into the pool in one of the Sims, and he happily played on the bottom of the pool for hours before got bored and dragged him from the pool and put him back in his crib. And I think that was funny because his parents tried to save him and drowned in the process. I actually had him cast themselves on fire trying to get the baby out of flaming house, and they burned to death while the baby and toddler would happily play.
And don't you feel bad for what you did?
I didn't even feel bad. It was the most hilarious thing I ever saw when it was going on. Especially when the fire department people would come in, and instead of trying to put out the fire, they would try to get the toddler. As soon as they get that toddler, they put the toddler down and burst into flames.
The violence!
So many tombstones, so many dead people.
Sims 2 started something else that was a bit of a phenomenon, and that was the alien baby.
Yes.
Look through the telescope a little too often, and you'd get abducted, and when you come back, you got a little green baby that pops out later.
Actually, it was a 25% chance for the females, and a 100% chance for the males.
Yeah.
I found that very funny. Oh, wow, we're talking about The Sims 2 a lot.
Well, let's move on. SimCity Societies in 2007 also. We've talked about that one a few times on the show before. That was almost like a puzzle game version of SimCity because it was less about managing a city and more about managing just locations, really.
Yeah, it was SimCity for 2-year-olds.
It was really hard to run out of money as long as you were paying attention to what buildings went where.
Exactly.
Which, you know, as a puzzle mechanic, that's pretty on the ball. Matter of fact, there was an actual SimCity puzzle game in 2008 called Sims Carnival Snap City, which was even more Tetris-y. It's like the Tetris version of SimCity Societies. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if that's where it spawned out of. Well, if you're going to make a puzzle game anyway, let's go ahead and make ourselves a puzzle game. And 2008 was also when Spore came along, and that was when Will Wright pretty much, I think he had enough, personally.
I think he was heartbroken by Spore's failure.
Because Spore, at its core, is a genius game. The mechanics of it itself, which is the character creation thing of watching how this thing that you are making figures out how to move for itself and eat for itself and defend for itself using the ridiculous things that you put on it and some of the creativity that people would put into it. I mean, they were recreating all sorts of stuff. More often than not, people like to, you know, and they go to the lowbrow route, but there's still plenty of really fantastic creatures on there. But once you got past that creator, the game kind of went downhill from there. I mean, each of these little minigames that it had were interesting, but even combined, there just wasn't enough content there to keep you continue playing.
I think the game is actually quite fun until you get to space. In space, it was the most boring part of the game ever. It was just basically restarting. Although terraforming the worlds and just running around destroying everything was kind of fun. And then getting to the center of the galaxy. EA wouldn't tolerate giving Will Wright more time to work on it.
Well, he'd had so much already. The game was in development for like 4 years, 5 years?
5 years. It was such a monumental task.
Even the looks of it, it probably would have taken another 2 years to get what he would have wanted out of it. And
yeah,
it is hard for a game company to let something go that long.
He asked for 2 years, he did, and they said, no, you need to release this now.
I don't know if it was out of a success or out of a hope to continue to get some money out of it, but they did release a expansion pack called Creepy and Cute the same year.
Yep.
And then there was also Spore Galactic Adventures a year later, so it's not that they didn't support the game, and the critical success of it was fairly high.
It was a fun game until the space part.
Yeah. We've already spent a lot of time talking about Sims, but Sims 3 came out in 2009 also, and it's obviously the one that's still running to this day. It seems like it's older than that. Usually it's the other way around to me, is it really that old now? But no, this one feels like it should be older than 4 or 5 years old now, but yeah.
I put a little bit of time into Sims 3, but it'll never be like Sims 2 was to me.
Which is strange because it's more of the same and better. There's so much more interactions between the characters, there's so much more everything. And
it is true.
I think it was just a concept I was bored of by the time it came along, because I have played it.
I think that was it too.
Where I played it at.
The house building was even better.
Oh yes.
Maybe I'll get into it eventually, but until then.
And then 2011's Dark Spore, which was basically Spore when it had a baby with Diablo.
Well, I didn't even play it.
It had some pretty good success. I haven't played it either, but as a concept, I could see why it would be pretty successful. I mean, you're breaking it down to the basic concept of creating characters and then throwing them in a world where you're battling other characters for experience points and loot. That sounds like a pretty solid idea there.
Until you said it, I'd never even heard of it. I think I might have actually enjoyed it.
Just haven't really played the games that much. While you guys are talking, though, I'm trying to take my Wii apart. I don't suppose if you know how to do that, do you?
No.
Screwdriver and a crowbar.
Because there's no way I'm sending it back so that they can fix it for $100. That's retarded. I can get a brand new one for almost that.
Yep.
SimCity 5. I played in the betas, and even then I started to notice some oddities, but then it was just like, it's the beta, they're gonna fix it. And it was a stress test beta that actually worried me. And what's your numbers for your stress test? Because this is how many people that pre-ordered, what's your numbers? And they said about 300,000, and it's just like, oh dear God, that's less than 50% of the pre-orders. And they said, no, it's simulated, it'll be fine. So, on March 5th, the servers start open, you should be able to download. I refresh Origin to get ready, and Origin immediately times out and crashes. Just knew immediately right then. I was like, oh no. I don't think I get to play the game until 10 o'clock the next morning. And I got to play it for 15 minutes before the game kicked me out, and I was locked out for another 4 hours. Yeah.
But I've said it before, and I'll say it again, it is an online game, so when their online game launches like that, especially when most of their sales are coming from sales servers on top of that, you're going to have to expect some downtime in the first 24, 48 hours.
And I did expect that. I was just like, I knew this was coming. They messed up big time. It happens. I'll deal with it. Then it finally got up, and it stayed up, and everything was good. And then these rumors start popping up. And at first, I'm like, these are just rumors. These aren't true. The game was always meant to be online. And then evidence pops up that completely contradicts EA and Maxis. And that's where I quit being completely on Maxis' side for their mistakes. I started being like, okay, you guys intentionally held stuff from us that was not needed. You could have just admitted, and I would have been slightly annoyed, but still happy, but you flat out lied. And then Lucy Bradshaw...
Sounds right.
Lucy in the Sky?
She started speaking. And every time she spoke, I hated her a little more, because I used to work in marketing and stuff. So I know PR, like, by the back of my hand.
Spin, man.
And the last time was just last night, where she basically told us, yeah, I know we're supposed to be offline at one point, but we decided that it wasn't in our vision. And this infuriated me. That was kind of the turning point for me.
Well, I'm not going to defend what Bradshaw or any of the others are doing regarding this, but I also see where they're coming from. Why there was not an offline mode, I have no idea. That is inexcusable. However, the fact that the game is online, it is obviously designed around that online features, because even part of the reason the cities are so small is simply because it is easier for them to upgrade that later through the online services that they're putting together for, and a lot of the glitches that they're having problems with are directly related to things they are obviously planning on doing down the road. So these are things that should have been fixed. I am not giving them a clear pass for that. But as far as this whole thing about, oh, it could have been offline all along and they're just doing this for DRM purposes, some of that is true.
But no, most of the scenes, they're pretty straightforward. Even with this, I still have a lot of respect for most of the Maxis developers and stuff. They are working on fixing a lot of stuff. I saw a video of them fixing the Pathfinder, and it looks much better. It's a hard thing. I'm pissed at the company, but I still enjoy the game.
It's a great game with a monstrous engine. I mean, a lot of people can pick it apart if they want to, but it's the same thing with a lot of sandbox games. The bigger the game is, the easier a lot of glitches and stuff are going to slip through, even if they seem obvious at the time. Because some of these may be server related, but there is so many algorithms and quotients and all sorts of stuff running in the background of a game like this. There is a glitch with the population counter that it's not actually accurate.
I can explain that too. The population, it's called the fudge population system. The population says 405,446. You need to take that and divide it by 8.2. My true population is roughly 55,000, which is about 8.2.
A lot of that 50,000 is actually being represented by either a car or a person walking around on that screen.
Exactly.
Or
they're inside a building at the moment.
All these little computations plus the graphics that this game is keeping up with.
That is 55,000 individual units that are roaming around in this city. I need to keep track of all of them. To help, and they do have a herding mentality.
I'll fall over, Mike.
It's very simplified where agent needs to go here. Agent needs to find this. Agent goes from A to B. Which is interesting enough. You can take your industrial and put it right next to a power plant, and they'll just deliver all their freight to the power plant and make and be happy and successful. But from all the bugs, it's still a pretty good game. They just have a lot of stuff to work on. There's going to be a SimCity store. Somebody already found the coding for it and the game. Of course, this is going to happen.
Yeah, they kind of already proved that with the whole Maxis Man that came with the
limited edition.
Yeah. So that's more than likely a DLC prototype. So there's going to be later stuff too. So I think it's going to get fixed, but do you think the fallout is too great that the game's going to be forever marred as the great SimCity failure at this point?
People will always remember that the things that went wrong with SimCity, even if it completely recovers.
Because there's a lot of people that score that way too.
Yeah.
Diablo 3 never recovered either.
No. There's a part of me that's excited for SimCity that I would kind of like to toy around with it a little bit, but at the same time, even if it was offline, I still don't know that I could get into it again because I tried playing some other SimCities and despite the crashes and stuff, I just didn't get back to it.
Yeah.
So that compiled with the fact it is online only, and I won't keep kicking this horse too much, but I do have horrible internet, so that just makes it absolutely impossible for me to play games like that.
Yeah, unfortunately. I know on Monday I get a game. I don't know what kind of game, but I know I'm getting a game from them.
Yep, the freebie.
probably going to be something small, like an iPhone game or something.
But I think as long as players have like a choice, even if it's limited, like 5 different games that EA's made in recent years, like
Most people are thinking it's probably going to be like a $20 gift card for Origin.
probably, which would be fine. One thing I did want to discuss, and one of the other major glitches that I've noticed is the rubber band buildings. And it's not normally too noticeable because when you're using the bulldozer and everything, it seems to be normal. But when that dragon thing comes popping out and it walks past certain buildings, they'll swivel. I've seen some swivel all the way around and then fit right back in place. It is the most...
I have too.
I mean, I know this is not
It is
take seriously
hilarious.
way, but it's any sense of realism you might have had. I know it's a monster running.
He's still there.
Ramping. He's still
It does look like that.
Maybe it's the little floating men that's to blame for the traffic problems. We're definitely getting close to time, though, so any final thoughts?
I hope this game doesn't fail, because I'll be waiting for 10 years for nothing.
I'm glad I didn't waste my money on it yet.
Yeah, I wasted a little bit of money on this.
So what Sim series would you like to see reborn, if any?
Sim
is
Ant.
undoubtable. Sim Ant 2?
Same Ant.
What would they do with the Sim Ant? Boy, look at him go. But alas, I think that's our show for this week. Join us every Monday for the next PrinnyCast. Our Twitter is @PrinnyCast. Our email is prinnycast@gmail.com. I don't know if we got everywhere we meant to say today, but we covered a lot of territory nonetheless.
Yeah, I think we're doing good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dismantle.
Wish I had just played more Sim games. When I got into SimCity 4, it was just a little too much because I hadn't played since the original. So
Join us next week with Nachaba Dog, Elko Webney, Dag Dag.
Furby says bye.
See you later.
Alrighty.
Later.